As we spoke last week, Jesus was trying to incorporate his disciples into the work of the church, understanding that this work was going to be at a cost, that we all had to suffer and die to some extent to spread this message of love. This week's gospel, Jesus has come down from the mountain, and he is with his disciples, and he has found out that they haven't worked exactly as he thought they should, and they were actually arguing about things that were really unnecessary. They were arguing about who was first and who was in charge. They were arguing about who should take care of what and who should take care of whom. And honestly, they were ignoring their responsibilities. Jesus pulls into them a child, a puer in the Latin, a little boy, and he holds this little boy and he says, "Whoever serves this child serves me and serves my Father." An incredible message, and I think a message that we take to heart as we take care of children. This society loves children, and we seem to see the necessity of caring for them, clothing them, feeding them, and making sure that they have an education. But I think this gospel text is even more deep than that. I think that what Jesus is doing is he's showing the disciples that vulnerability is beautiful. And it actually is a sign of godliness. Vulnerability, being lowly, being outcast, is actually a sign of godliness. And maybe we're called to approach God as God being more vulnerable than we ever imagine. Think about that. A vulnerable God, vulnerable to love, vulnerable to sin, vulnerable. When Jesus brings this child in and speaks about this child being accepted in love, accepted with dignity, and accepted with grace, he is putting before us not only that child, but every person who is vulnerable, every person who is disgraced by society, every person who is belittled. How often do we cast judgment on people that are different from us? It could be color, it could be religion, it could be sexual preference, it could be anything. And yet, we judge when we are called not to judge. We are called instead to embrace the vulnerability, because that vulnerability shows us who God is and what is most godly in the world. Embrace those who are different. Embrace those who are most in need of love. Embrace those who are most fragile. And in that, you are embracing God.